Hello and welcome. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos. In today's video, DMs, let rogues have their sneak attack. I'm currently playing in a campaign where our DM seems to be under the impression that our rogue is somehow overpowered because our level 7 rogue consistently deals 22 to 26 damage per turn and our fighter does not. DMs, please understand that the rogue was created to be a single target, high DPR class. The concept of sneak attack is flavor to the mechanic, but the mechanic itself is what makes rogues viable as a martial class. In exchange, they give up the ability to have an extra attack, medium/heavy armor, and a good chunk of hit points in comparison to other martial classes. In fact, it was expected when the rogue was designed that they would get sneak attack every round. It's how they keep up with the other classes. Mike Morales has said so himself. If it helps, you can think of sneak attack like the rogue cantrip. It scales with level so that they don't fall behind in damage from other classes. Thanks for reading, and I hope the rogues out there get to shine and combat the way they were meant to. Is this a thing? Rogues can easily get sneak attack by simply attacking an enemy adjacent to another PC. How can a DM stop that? Just changing the rule. Humph. Yeah, I would be against that change, for sure. Idiots see a fistful of dice and think it means something. Rogues generally are on par with other martials if they get their sneak attack every turn. I hear this one enough times to know that there are DMs who want to set up all these extra conditions in order for a rogue to get their SA, so it's a good reminder. Sometimes people need to see it in writing. PSA, I'd like to point out that a rogue can also apply sneak attack to their attack of opportunity, provided they meet sneak attack rules. I've run expected average damage and in most instances a rogue will be almost exactly on par with every other melee class in the game if not slightly behind. If they use advantage to get sneak attack rather than allies they are a little better since they crit more. Also, since they don't get 2 attacks they become really swingy. Either they do 2 attacks worth of damage or they watch a fight and act like they are helping. I agree, but I want to point out that a big failure of the Dungeon Master's Guide is not explaining how DMs should view each of the classes. A simple chapter that details each of the classes, and their design intention behind each one, would go a long way in preparing DMs to deal with them. I mentioned in my game just last night that sneak attack must be the most poorly named ability in 5e. Just a simple name change would do, say Roguish Might, although I'm pretty sure someone could come up with something better. Can your fighter not deal that sort of damage in one turn? Longsword with dueling and 2 attacks is doing, assuming 20 STR, 4.5 plus 7 equals 23 damage per turn. You get slightly higher damage from great weapons, and slightly higher again from TWF. If not, presumably they've either gotten feats, gone for archery, slightly lower damage for the ability to stab a guy from far away and better accuracy, or have gone for defense, and are harder to hit, and so can make up for doing a couple less points of damage than the rogue. I'd ask them if they're modifying the rogue rules from the PHB and if so, retire your character and make something with Divine Smite or Eldritch Smite, and then see how your DM reacts. Haha. Sorry they're making it suck. When I showed my DM, they were like, whoa, that's more powerful than I originally thought. I'll adjust enemies accordingly. And since then, we've been sneak attacking fools left, right, and center. Having taken the swashbuckler subclass, when I'm in melee range with no other allies, I'm always getting to sneak attack. As someone who almost exclusively plays rogue, thank you. Fortunately with the UA that gives us aim as a cunning action that makes it easier for even the most stingy DM to accept it, assuming they accept that UA. That in mind, I have rarely run into any issues with this fortunately. As a DM who saw how monstrous a rogue poison crit can be, I can see where they are coming from. But you are correct, that's the whole point of the class. Learn to plan taking it into account, not try to cancel it out. If you really want to piss off your DM, take some barbarian levels after hitting 7 Latvian Lottie Rogue. You'll have uncanny dodge, evasion, and your rage ability cuts all slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning damage by half. Additionally, at 2 Latvian Lottie Barbarian you gain reckless attack, which you can use to grant yourself advantage on any attack, and trigger your sneak attack as well. Then, on your turn when the creature now has advantage on you due to reckless attack, you can just use uncanny dodge to reduce the damage to nothing. They also only get 1 shot, if that 1 attack misses that damage doesn't happen. That's why 2-weapon fighting is so popular, but that bonus action attack prevents their cunning action. Have you had this conversation with your DM? Told them that they were making your rogue unfun? I mean he's absolutely wrong about sneak attack. You can sneak an attack in so quickly after the first attack that they didn't see it coming. Nobody said it was so hidden nobody knew where it came from or how it had happened. Obviously it's the stabby guy standing next to you who just stabbed you. He's the DM, so he's welcome to play the I get to make the rules card, but if he's going to make your class unfun and not change after knowing that, well then he just sucks as a DM. While I mostly agree, the other side of the story is that, rogues, you don't need to sneak attack more than once per round to be good. You've contributed well with one, don't let the carrot people make you feel otherwise. Conversely, expecting to be able to hide every round and get sneak attack using hidden advantage is similarly bullshit from the player's expectation. You getting sneak attack means sometimes you'll have to attack an inconvenient target if the conditions aren't right for the one you want to attack. It does not mean you're guaranteed an environment where you can spam hide to get advantage on every attack. Players will miss a third to a quarter of attacks they make thanks to bounded accuracy. Usually closer to a third. So it only makes sense for the guy making one attack to hit harder when he hits, compared to the guy who is attacking twice a turn. That guy has far fewer dead turns. For any DM who thinks rogues are unfair. This drives me nuts whether I'm playing a rogue or in a game with someone who is playing a rogue. Every rogue turn becomes a negotiation/debate as to whether or not sneak attack applies. DMs constantly complain about how OP it is and constantly are trying to engineer scenarios/loopholes where it doesn't apply. It gets worse if the rogue is a swashbuckler with extended sneak attack options. I've also seen DMs complain that the UA subclass expanded feature aim is too OP because sneak attack is bad/OP enough that they don't need that, too. I feel like if DMs don't like sneak attacks they should just ban the class from their games rather than try to constantly take away a core feature for which they are balanced to have. Another peeve about this feature though, people assuming that if sneak attack applies, the rogue gets advice on the attack. A rogue always gets sneak attack if they have advantage, but the reverse is not true. I agree with you. If you take away sneak attack, then the rogue becomes a really underpowered fighter with low AC and low HP. I've played as a rogue with a DM who didn't give me many opportunities to fight like a rogue. Lots of open areas where battles took place, not allowing flanking mechanics, etc. It sucked, because my rogue was just weak compared to everyone else in that sense. Now as a DM, I do my best to give rogues places to hide, sneak attack/surprise attack opportunities, etc. It's a core mechanic to the class. A DM that can't handle that isn't balancing well. Also a level 7 fighter with point buy and synergistic race should be able to deal good damage per round themselves. A great sword attack with a +3 STR/X2 with GWM the average should be 20 DPR of both hit. I DM always thought that rogues were overpowered. That was my fault, I concentrated too much on a standard tank and spam kind of combat. Since I've made fights more interesting, the rogue's extra damage not only is needed, but tank classes also understand their roles better and are not jealous of the sometimes outrageous damage output by a rogue. Yeah, I think what throws people off is the name because it makes people think of how sneak attacks worked in other RPGs. Stylistically I think it's better to think of it as the rogue using more finesse in his strikes to go after vulnerable areas, rather than simply surprising his opponent. I truly believe the problem with sneak attack is the name. A DM hears the rogue asking do I get sneak attack? Or say I get sneak attack, analyzes the scenario for sneakiness, and then says no when they don't find any. Matt Mercer himself did this all the time in the first campaign of Critical Role. If it had been named something else, I don't think there would be as much of a problem. I have no better substitute for a name unfortunately. Backstab has a similar potential problem with DMs thinking you have to be able to stab the target in the back, which is even worse because 5e doesn't have facing rules. I've been one of the primary DMs for a group that's been playing weekly for about 5 years. It never fails when we play D&D that I am taken by surprise at how powerful the PCs are. Oftentimes they'll smoke an encounter I thought they'd have trouble with. Just as often I'll find they struggle greatly on encounters I didn't intend to be the death trap it turned into. Water ups the CR of many encounters greatly. The point being is that almost every class each time they level up will surprise me the DM with their new badass power. I don't fear it, or want to nerf it, even though it can be super off-putting to have the PCs roll over an encounter you worked hard on. It just shows me that they're ready for enemies and problems that are even more of a challenge than what they've been dealing with, and that should excite everyone.